Hey, hi friends, very good morning to everyone. So, last class we were discussing about export import concept. So, why it will be used in real time and all. So, we have some parameters to be discussed in export and import, even though we are not using that anyway now. So, the first one, as you can see in the table, is a parameter by the name buffer. So when you are executing an export command, you can use this buffer parameter along with the command whatever you are giving. So the basic purpose of having this buffer parameter is to speed up the export process. So when you give a higher value to this buffer parameter, then basically you are going to give the value in the quantity of bytes. So if you say that 10,000 sorry if you say it is like 1 lakh bytes or 10 lakh bytes, then it will be converted into MBs or so, and those many bytes of data will be exported at a single stretch, or otherwise the data will be read block by block, which is going to take more time. So instead of that, to speed up the export process, we are going to give this value. The usual standard values that we follow is either something like 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs, something like that, but not more than 10 lakhs, because even if you give more than 10 lakhs, Oracle is not going to implement that. So any range between 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs is okay. And then we have another parameter, direct equals to y. So this parameter is also used to speed up the export process. So what basically happens is when you issue an export command with this option direct equals to y, the data will be copied directly from the data file to the dump file, bypassing the memory. So because you are bypassing memory, so it will be a little bit faster. But there is a restriction to this parameter direct, that we cannot use this if you have a table with LOB data type or long data type or raw data type. So these are the restrictions that we have. So first let me show you these two, how we are going to use it. So the same syntax, I'm just taking some dummy names here. So as I said, buffer parameter is to increase the speed up of the, to speed up the export process. So just you need to give the value like that. So here I am taking full export. It can be applicable to any level, either schema level, table level, or whatever. So similarly, we can make use of direct parameter. So similar command, I'm going with a different dump file name. So can't we use buffer and direct at the same time? Yes, we can use. There is no problem in that. But just to differentiate, I am showing individually. So one good part with export is, as I said, direct equals to y is not applicable for some tables, like where the table is having LOB data type and all. So if any such tables are existing that an Oracle cannot export it with the help of direct equals to I option, automatically it will be converted into the normal method. Like the data will be copied from data file to buffer cache, and from buffer cache the data will be again copied to the dump file, and that we generally call it as a conventional path. So for example, here you can see it is saying that table so and so will be exported in conventional path, which means direct equals to y is not applicable for the table. Maybe, as I said, the table might be having LOB data type or long or raw data types. So which means automatically Oracle is switching between the direct path and the conventional path. So here if you look at only for this table, it changes the mode to conventional path, and again for the next tables it went through the direct path. Again for another table it went to the conventional path. So like this it is repeated. So this is what direct equals to y will do. The next one is par file. So something like a shell script. You can put all the options inside this file, and every time if you want to execute you can just make use of that particular file. So let us see. So this is a text file. You need to just open it with VA editor, I mean a new file with the extension .par. You can give any name to your you can give any name over here, but the extension should be .par. So here you can write all the options. Let's say daily you are taking export for some reason. So instead of daily remembering and issuing all the options, you can make use of the things over here. For example, you can mention the user ID here itself. Then suppose I want to take full database export. Then I can mention the dump file name and log file name. So like this, all the options we can store in this particular file. So when you want to run export, simply you need to say exp var file equals to that file name. So automatically it will take all the options and it will start with the export. Okay, so here it is saying okay, that might be a different format. So whatever the options we mention, it will carry over here and it will be completed. So next we have an option called consistent. So if you are using this consistent, by default it is no, but particularly if you are saying consistent equals to y, as the name itself is saying, it means that you want the consistent data. So suppose when you are taking export and at the same time on one of the table some DML statement is happening. So let's say some update is happening. So obviously whatever the export you are taking, that will not be having consistent values, because at the same time some other DML statement is modifying your data. So if you mention this consistent equals to y, Oracle will try to fetch the data from the undo table space. All the old values, whatever is there, it will try to take from the undo table space. But as you know, in some situations, it will be almost equals to the situation of Aura 1555. In Aura 1555 also, if you recollect, one DML will happen, one select will happen, and they will clash with each other. So here also that kind of situation might occur, and if you are using consistent equals to y, you may land up with Aura 1555 error. And you know what we need to do if we get Aura 1555. So first we need to wait for some time, and then we need to again execute the export command. So that is what we use it to have. There are so many other parameters also, but I just highlighted only few which are important from the interview point of view also. Similarly, we have some parameters in import. So the first parameter is show. So if you say show equals to y in your import command, Oracle will not do the import, but it will just simulate how the import will happen. So it will just put everything into a log file. So you can open the log file and see if we get any errors. So it is like, as I said, simulation. Before doing the actual import, you can just have a look how it works. And the second option is ignore. So as we discussed in the last class already, if we have a table with the same name and you are trying to import the same table, it will give you an error that name is already being used by another object. So in such cases, if you want to avoid such errors, you know the table is already there, but you want to avoid such errors in the log file, then you can mention ignore equals to y. So by this you are telling to Oracle that I know the table is there already, so please don't throw me the error. So if the table is already there and you mentioned ignore equals to y, only the table creation will be skipped, but the data will still be inserted into the table. So to whatever the data already existing is there, the latest data will get appended to that. Then we have commit. So this will be useful especially if you are doing a huge bulk imports. So usually, as I said, import is a process of DML and DDL statements. So it will make use of undo table space as well as redo also will be generated very huge, especially if you are doing a bulk import. So during that time, sometimes your undo table space may get full and you may get errors. So instead of that, you can make use commit equals to y, so that after importing each and every table, Oracle internally will give a commit so that the blocks in the undo will be expired and it can be reused by the next process. So just to avoid undo table space issues, we are going to use this parameter commit equals to y, and the two in a huge import things. So anyone having questions before we proceed?
So, sorry about the commit. What happens during the commit when doing bulk import? We should bulk import.
So usually when you are doing import, because it is a change to the database, it will make use of undo table space. So when you are doing bulk import, in the sense very huge imports, like 500 GB of data you are importing, or more than 500 GB of data you are importing, it might be possible that your undo table space will get full. So just to avoid that issue, you can just make use of this commit equals to y. So what basically happens is, after every table import, Oracle internally will issue a commit, and when commit is issued, the undo blocks will become expired. And once the undo blocks become expired, it can be used by the next table. So like that, you are making the wantedly you are making the undo blocks expired, so that you can reuse the same space again and again. Or otherwise, you need to keep on adding more undo table space.
So
So
this
if you,
happens only when you're just inserting the data, right? When you exported the data, not the DDL commands, right? Because it is only for the data which has to be imported.
no, I think I'm not sure whether you attended last class. So import will first create the table, then it will insert the data, then it will create the corresponding objects like views, etc. Then it will add the constraints. So it will do a long procedure.
So then DDL is happening, right? So it should do commit, right? As you said, it will create the table. So DDL is happening, right?
I'm talking about DML. DDL is auto commit, I agree that, but the DML is not auto commit, right?
So, okay, so I'm just trying to understand this import, right? So you said, okay, so first, suppose, let's say example, you are importing one table, right? And the table does not exist. So let's say there are two tables. So first table, it will create a table, right? And then it will import the data. Then it will go to the second table, it will create a table, and then it will import the data, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's say the first, okay, it created the table, it inserted the data. Second, it again, second table it is trying to create, so that DDL is happening. So, right? So then it will commit, right?
Okay, let me tell you this example.
Mhm.
Let's say you are importing a table of 50 GB,
Okay.
okay, and your undo table space is 10 GB.
Okay.
So what happens in this case is, when you are trying to import the data, obviously it will generate undo blocks, and might be, I'm not saying this practically, but thinking about logical things, obviously 10 GB undo table space might not be sufficient when you are importing a huge data like 50 GB. So in that case, what happens, your undo table space will become full, and it will say that, for furthermore, it will say that there is no more space in the undo and your import will fail. So just to avoid this thing, what we are doing is, we are just saying commit equals to 1.
Okay. So
So
okay, I got it. What you're trying to say. You gave an example of one table which is bigger than the undo table space, right? Okay. My question is now, like SQL loader, I guess 64 is the record, right? By default, at 64 it will commit. So what is the how many after how many records it will commit here?
generally it will commit only after inserting entire table. That is after 50 GB. I mean, in the example what I have taken. So because my undo table space is 10 GB and the data which I am loading is 50 GB, which is the default thing. So after 50 GB only the commit will happen. But my undo cannot support that one. So what we are doing is, we are saying commit equals to y, and Oracle will take a call after how many rows it need to do the commit.
Okay. So you mean to say Oracle will take a call. Okay. Got it.
Exactly. Anyway, like we are not using it now, so export import is already deprecated. So no need to worry
Yeah,
about
because I never use this commit equal to y. So that is why I was trying to understand when this can happen. Okay. So now you took an example of a big table, right? So yeah, practically
it.
never
Yes.
saw this scenario. Okay.
Yeah.
uh, if you're doing export, if you have multiple databases, so when we connected to a particular database only, when we set to that particular environment only, so only those tables will be get exported, or it is the entire server, whatever we have multiple databases, all those export is being taken that.
Only to the database, what the environment you have set.
Oh.
Okay, so now 10G brought an extension to export import, enhancing it furthermore. And because of that reason, and no, we have a lot many advantages with this. And the concept is called as data pump export import. So now people started calling the original export import as traditional export import. So as I said, there are more and more advantages. So because of that, uh, now you can almost see like 100% nobody is using export import until unless we land up with some issues in data pump export import, and there is no other alternative. So only in that cases we are going for the normal export now. Or otherwise, I can say 100% in every environment we are using only data pump. So as I said, a data pump is having so many advantages. So it is faster than normal export or normal import. So what basically data pump will do is when your commands are almost similar, we will come to that. But what basically happens is when you issue the export command in data pump, so as you can see in this picture, Oracle will create something called a master table, and it will create in the schema which you are using. Suppose I connected as sysdba and I am taking export, then in sysuser it will create the master table. Or I connected as Scott user and I am taking export, then in Scott schema it will create the master table. So after creating the master table, whatever the table data that it need to take export, first it will copy the data to the master table, and from master table the data will be copied into the dump file. So now there will be definitely a question from you that why a two-step process is required. Why first it is copying to master table and then it is copying to the dump file. Why can't the table data directly copy to the dump file? Because this is because two reasons. The first reason is when you are copying the table data directly to the dump file, and for suppose due to some reason your export is terminated, then you cannot really get to know till what level it was completed. Suppose there is a table which is having 10,000 rows and the data is being copied directly to the dump file. So if the export is terminated in between, you don't know how many rows are copied to the dump file and how many rows are left over. And it might also lead to corruption, like the dump file corruption sometimes. So that is point number one. And point number two is this data pump will provide you an option of pausing and continuing the export, which means, let's say today I got a requirement to refresh my production data to the test environment. So let's say my shift will end by 6 o'clock in the evening, and I got this request at 5 o'clock, and I know that it is a very huge database. So I started the export at 5 o'clock, but by 6 o'clock it was not completed, and I don't want that to continue. So what we can do is we can just pause the job. So till whatever the status it is running, we can just stop it there. And tomorrow morning again when you are in shift, you can continue that. So Oracle provided that option for you. So if at all you want to have such kind of thing, then this master table concept is the one which is going to help you. So what it will do is, the moment you say pause the job, the data flow will stop from the original table to the master table. So that means your master table will not get the new data, and when your master table doesn't get new data, then the new data will not be floated into the dump file. So everything will be paused as it is, and as I said, we can continue at a later point of time. So for that, to support that feature also, Oracle introduced this master table concept. So now here if you sorry. So here if you see, tables are residing in data files physically if you talk about, and data files will reside in disk, and then dump file will also reside in disk, which means basically here you are doing disk to disk data transfer, and nowhere you are involving memory here. And because you are not involving memory here, this data pump export is much more faster than the normal export. Because in the normal export you are touching the memory also, and memory, whenever you are having disk and memory, you are performing an IO. But here disk to disk you cannot call it as IO. So that's the difference we have. And if you take data pump import process, it is just a reverse of this diagram. So there also Oracle will create master table. First, data from the dump file will be copied to the master table, and from master table the data will be cascaded to the corresponding original tables. So just it will be a reverse of the export process. So the good advantage what we have is, Oracle is going to create this master table automatically, and once the job is completed, whether export or import, it is going to drop the master table automatically. So that is one facility what Oracle is having. And also there are two separate background process which will take care of this entire activity. So normally in the traditional export import, server process will take care of that. But here Oracle introduced a new background process. One is called as data pump master process, and the second one is data pump worker process, which are represented with DM00 and DW00 names. So worker process is the one which will actually do entire work, and master process is just a supervisor. It is going to monitor whether worker process is working fine or not. And data pump gives you one more level of export that we can do. Like a normal export, we can go with full database, schema level, table level, and row level. Here in data pump, you can go with table space level also. So from a particular table space, if you want to go ahead and export the data, so that is possible through this data pump option. And there are so many features that are there with data pump, and especially to speed up the export process, we have parallel option. So you can use parallel option so that multiple worker process will be created, and parallelly they will be taking the export, and the export will complete faster. And anytime if you want to see the status of the export process, there are two ways. So one way is to check a view called db underscore data pump underscore jobs, and the second one I will show you when we start the practical commands. So this is very important to remember. Whenever you perform a data pump export with parallel option, compulsory during import also you need to give parallel option. Otherwise, it is going to impact the performance of the import. So just to give you an example, one time, like one of my colleague faced an issue that she started importing one dump file. So she got the dump file from other database team. The database is not being managed by our team. So once they have given this dump file, export dump file, so she has started the import, and the size is just around 2 GB or so. It's not more than that. So ideally 2 GB data will be imported, as per the expectations in less than 15 minutes. That's the normal expectation. So what happened is she has started the import of command without any parallel, and almost it has completed 2 hours, but still it is importing. So then this is the very first time, or I can say when the data pump is newly introduced, I'm talking about. So then we also wondered like why it is taking so much of time. And after some permutations and combinations, finally we thought of using this parallel option, and I told her to change to stop that import process and re-execute it with some parallel value, like parallel equals to 4 or 8 or whatever. So when she used that parallel option, that import got completed within 10 minutes. So then after referring to Oracle support and all, we got to know that this is very important, that if your export was done in parallel, then your import also should happen with parallel. Then otherwise you will end up with this kind of issues. So what my suggestion is, if you don't know whether the export is done in parallel or not, because as I said, sometimes there will be a different database team that will hand over the dump file to you. So and in that case we don't know whether they have used it or not, they have exported with parallel option or not. So what I recommend is always do the import with parallel option. So there is nothing harm in doing that. So even if it is a small data like 1 GB, 100 MB and all, still you can use parallel of some value. So Oracle is having one advantage that if it requires, it will pick up the parallel value. But if it feels that one process is enough for that, then it won't create parallel process. So data pump process is so much intelligent that it is going to handle by its own. So that is one recommendation that I do. So the primary difference that comes to the export and the normal export and the data pump export process is, earlier in export we are going to take the export wherever we want. We can take the export uh, at whatever the location we want, and there is small disadvantage with this. So let me show you that disadvantage here. So let's say I am a developer and I know DBA concepts, and let's say fortunately I got sys password also. Let's say one of my friend is working in DBA team and I got a sys user password. So what I can do, if I get a sys password, so you can have a look here. Just a moment. Just give me a moment. So I have TNS entry of prod.db here in my local machine, and see here what I am doing. So as I said, so from where I am running the export, the normal export, I am running it from the local machine of a developer. And as I said, I know the password of this user. So see what happens here. Export is happening, and I mentioned to create the dump file in the F drive with the name full.dmp. So once this export completes, let's see whether the dump file has been created or not. Okay, I think it's taking time, that's fine. But here you can see the dump file is getting created, and of course when the data flow starts, the dump file will be loading with the data as well. Now let's assume that we have some option that we can copy this dump file to to a USB. So what a developer can do is, I mean, don't take it wrong when I say developer every time. So any person. So I'm just taking an example. So any person who is having access can copy this dump file into an USB if they have option in their organization. And I can take this, let's say the database is crucial and having some credit card information and all of the customers, so the mobile numbers of the customers. So I can take this dump file through USB to my home, and let's say in my home, because I know the DBA knowledge, so I will create one dummy database, and I will do import of this data into that, and then I can see the data whatever I want. If you remember, I told you that in organizations, when you do refresh from production to test environment, we will be performing data masking through some scripts that is in the organization. But here, there is no such thing because I am doing it my home, so I can openly see all the sensitive data. And after that we can play with that sensitive data. So this has been identified as one of the security lapses, especially with export, because it is allowing you to take export even to a remote location. So this has been fixed in data pump with the introduction of something called a directory concept. So what we are going to do here with the directory concept is, first at OS level we will create one directory, and in Oracle also we will create a directory with for that location. So basically in Oracle level, directory means an alias name. So to this location U03 prod db export, we are creating a alias name by the name dpdir. And what we are going to do is, suppose if we are a sys user and we want to take export, every time we need to give that directory name here. And if you use this directory name and you are mentioning the dump file name here, so this dump file will be created in the directory only. So which means if I execute a command with this directory, the dump file will be created only in U03 prod db export. So which means apart from having the dump file in the server, you cannot create the directories in the remote location. So that concept is not there. Point number one. So you can create the export files only in the server, not in any local machine. So by this, Oracle has restricted, or whatever the security labs that we have with traditional export, Oracle has bypassed that. And point number two, if a normal user like Scott, Pawan, etc. wants to take export, they need to have read and write permissions, or especially the write permissions, in order to create the file in the directory. So you can see here grant permission is there. So until unless we grant the permission of read and write on the directory, even a normal user cannot read the data or cannot access the dump file also. So that is how the restriction was put and security was increased with respect to this data pump export or import. So now, okay, that's fine. So have you people got this concept? What is meant by directory and what it is doing? Okay, so first let's go and see how different levels of export can be performed, and then we will come back and see this one. So as I said, first at OS level I am creating one directory. Okay, it is saying it is already existing. So if you want to see already existing directories, then you can make use of this view db underscore directories. It will tell you what are all the directories which are already there. So I don't have a directory to that location U03. These are some default directories that Oracle create. So when you are installing Oracle database, it will create some default directories. So I'm going to create one new directory here. So then I will make use of this directory in order to do the things. So because I created the directory as a sys user, so sys user will always be having permissions to take export and import into this location. So first let me show you how to take export of full database. So the names of the options have been changed a little bit. So obviously, because this is data pump export, instead of exp we are going to call it as expdp. Then directory, we are going to mention the directory name here. So earlier we used to call it as a file. So instead of that, now we are calling it as dump file. The name of this parameter, sorry, the name of this parameter has been changed. And also, instead of just log, now we are going to say it as log file, and this option remains same, full equals to y. And we don't require that other option, statistics equals to none, here, because this is an advanced version, so that warning has been taken away. So one good thing with data pump is, when you initiate export, in the beginning itself it will tell you an estimated size of the dump file, so which is not there in the normal traditional export. Okay, so as I said, when the export is happening, there are two ways that you can check the status of this. One is by connecting to the database. There is a view called DBA underscore data pump underscore jobs. So if you query this, it will tell you, that it is a full database export, etc., etc. So here you can see it is saying that this is the job name and this is the owner with which you are executing. So generally the job name itself will be the master table name also. So the same name will be there for the job, that is export job, as well as the master table as well. And operation, if it is export it will show you export, if it is import it will show you import, and at what level you are doing, whether it is full export or schema export, table export, so that will be shown here. And right now what is the status, whether it is executing or not, will be shown here from this view. So apart from this, there is another way to check the status. So if you have this job name, you can simply say expdp attach equals to the job name, then use slash /sdba. Okay, just a moment. Okay, export has been completed. Let me rerun. So one more thing, the difference that Oracle has brought in. If you remember, I told you in export, if you use the same file name, Oracle will override the existing data. I told you that it will not give you any error that file is already existing. So that has been enhanced here. And here, if you use the same file name, then Oracle will throw you an error stating that it is going to, already the file is existing. So you can see here, it is saying that the created file is already existing. So you can get the job name here also. So this is the job name. So as I said, you can just mention expdp attach equals to the job name, and now here you can see the status. So it will take you to the export prompt. There you can see the status, what and all is happening. So if you want to see the latest status every time, you can just say status, enter. Here it will tell you the status, whether it is executing or not. So similarly, we can go with the other levels as well. So this is the command for you know taking a table space level export. So whatever the tables and all we have in that particular table space, it will be exported here. And here I'm adding an option of parallelism as well. So when we say parallel equals to 4, 4 worker processes will be created and they will do the work parallelly so that the speed will be increased. So now a biggest question here is what value we should use for parallel? Like, is there any standard formula or something? Yes, usually there is, as per the logic, yes, there is a standard formula. So I have explained about this parallel, how to use it and all in one of my blog articles. So you can go through that. But generally we don't go with that much calculation. So there will be lot much calculation that will be mentioned in this article. But when it comes to real time, we don't go with that much. Always it is better to use a value of parallel of 4 or 6 or 8, or mostly by the parallel value of 12. And again, this parallel value is dependent on the number of CPUs. So in your server, if you are having, let's say, 64 CPUs, then you may go with till parallel of 12. So when you say parallel of 12, out of 64 CPUs, 12 CPUs will be allocated only for the parallel process. So that's the reason it will impact the CPU performance if you give more and more parallel value. So the max value that I have seen at least is parallel of 12. And one more thing is, especially when you are using parallel value, it is better to create multiple dump files instead of one dump file. Because for each and every parallel process, if there is a separate dump file, then the work will be much more faster. If you are giving only dump file, again what will happen, all the four parallel process, even though they are exporting differently, but when comes to writing wise, they need to write into the same dump file. So that will also cause a little bit waiting. So to create multiple dump files, you just need to mention like this in the export dump file name. Suppose you are giving some name like full prod.db or some name here. So you need to say underscore percentage %u. Then it will create unique dump files. So sequentially it will create. First file it will create with 01. Second file it will create with the number 02, 03, like that. So even when you are taking the level of export, the job name will also vary according to that. So if you take full export, here after export you will see full. For example, here you can see. Let me show you that. So here if you see, because I am taking full database export, here it will show you full. And in the second one, because I have taken only tablespace level export, here you can see it has taken only tablespace. So using the name of this file or name of this job also, you can get to know whether it is a full or tablespace level, schema level or something. So now if you look at here, it has created 3 dump files. So even though I mentioned parallel equals to 4, maybe Oracle has not used all the 4, it has used only 3 process out of it. That is what I said earlier. Even though you have given parallel of 10, but Oracle will not, I mean, it doesn't guarantee that Oracle will use all the 10, because out of 10, if it requires only 6, Oracle will use only 6 and it will not go ahead with the rest of the 4. So here also the same thing happened. So even though I said parallel equals to 4, it has used only 3 parallel process and it has created only 3 dump files. So that is the things we have. So similarly we have commands for other levels as well, schema level, table level, and row level. So coming to the options that we have in data pump export import. So before going further, anyone having any questions?
So in data pump, like in parallel, you're given four. So when I'm doing IMPDB, can we do the same value, or we can give six or to some other value?
You can give either equal or higher values. Either it can be 4 or greater than 4.
Okay, that scenario you told that if we don't know that the other team was not inform us and we are going to do, then how we assume that what is the value?
Just check how many CPUs you have, and you can take whatever the value you want. So generally,
So,
whoever is doing, they will go either with 4 or above. So, and by looking at the number of dump files also, you can get to know. For example, here you can see if 3 dump files is created, it means export might have been done with parallel equals to 3. Just a guess. Okay, so maybe in import you can give either 3 or more than 3.
oh, okay,
So
okay,
that way also we can conclude it.
okay. And this using data pumping, can we do the set of tables also, or only full data?
No, tables also.
Okay,
So schema is possible, table is possible, even rows also are possible. Like in a particular table, I want to take a export of only some specific rows. Yes, we can write a where condition and we can take that one as well.
okay, okay, okay. Thank you.
No problem. So coming back to the options, we have so many options, but I just listed out whatever we are using in real time. So the first one is attach. So just a while ago I showed you. This is basically to check the status of the export or import process. We are using it. So the second option is compression. So normally when we use it to have 9A database and we use it to do this export import. So normally if we take export and for a bigger database, obviously we'll get a bigger dump file size. So we use it to depend on the OS level commands like gzip or normal zip or compress. So we use it to depend on those commands in order to reduce the size of the file. So you must be having that experience as well. So let's say I have some file and I want to send it to some other person through email. So generally what we do is nowadays we are sharing it with the Google Drive or something. But earlier, if we want compulsory to do it with email, then we use it to try to compress it with a WinZip, and then we use it to send it out. So similarly, if you have a requirement to compress the file size, earlier in 9i we used to depend on that traditional, I mean OS level commands. And in 10G, Oracle has introduced a compression mechanism wherein you can mention that you want to compress the dump file, but in 10G it is limited to only certain part. Like you cannot compress entire dump file content. But when comes to 11G, you can compress entire dump file and the size will vary a lot. So let me just show you the difference. What would be the size? Okay, so this is the full database I have taken without any compression. So the file size I got is somewhere around 314 MB. So now we will do the export once again, but this time I will do the compression. So let's see what happens. And Oracle 12c has introduced one more thing. So till 11g we have only compression option, and that used to have different values. So if you want entire compression, then we use it to say compression equals to all. So basically internally it will use some algorithm and it will do the compression. Now 12c got introduced with another parameter, that is compression algorithm. So even you can mention there are 4 different algorithms: basic level compression, low compression, medium compression, and high compression. So if you say compression algorithm equals to high, then maximum compression will be done and the file size will be reduced. That is only from the 12c option. So first we'll go with the normal compression like in 11g, and we see what will be the file size. So this will take some time. So meanwhile we'll go with the other parameters. So the next one is content. So this is we say one of the best thing that we have with data pump. So content provide you 3 options. If you say content equals to yes, which is by default, then Oracle will export the rows along with the table metadata. So it will take the export of table metadata, and as well as it will export the rows. When I say metadata, it is the DDL of the table as well as the rows. If you say content equals to metadata only, there is a option. Let me show you that. So if you want to list down all these options, you need to simply say expdp help equals to y. Okay, so this is what I am talking about, compression algorithm. So we have basic, low, medium, high. So if you don't mention anything, it will go with basic. Whatever you are seeing here in brackets, those are default values. Okay, so coming back to content, as I said, if you say content equals to all, both the metadata as well as the rows will be exported. If you say content equals to metadata only, then rows will not be exported, only the structure of the table will be exported, means only the DDL statement. And if you say content equals to data only, then structure will not be exported, only the data will be exported, means the rows, whatever the rows you have inside the table, only those rows will be exported. So this option is not available with your traditional export import. In traditional export, there is only 2 options. Either you can take DDL plus rows or only DDL. But here you have 3 options: DDL plus rows, or only rows, or only DDL. So these 3 options were given for us. Then directory, we have talked about it. Then dump file, I told you that the name has been changed from file to dump file. If you want, you can go ahead and provide encryption for your dump file. So if you have a feeling that as I said earlier, somebody might copy this dump file to their local machine and can see the data or something, so you can just restrict them to use it by just creating the encryption format. And we have one option called exclude. So this is again, I say, one of the best options you have. So let's say you got a requirement that you want to take export of uh, some tables in a schema. So let's say I have a schema which is having 100 tables, and your application team requirement is out of those 100 tables you want to take export of only 90 tables. They don't want to export 10 tables. So normally what we use it to do is, earlier we use it to mention all the table names. So we use it to say table 1, comma table 2, comma table 3 and all. So which is obviously a painful task because you need to mention 90 table names. But with the introduction of this exclude command or exclude option, we have an advantage. So what we do now is, we will say we want to take export of entire schema, and at the same time we will say exclude equals to the tables starting from table 91 to table 100. So let me show you that. So normally earlier in export we use it to do like this. So we use it to say tables equals to table 1, table 2, 3, etc., etc. till table 90. But here what we can do is expdp, then directory, dump file, log file equals to so and so. Then we can say which schema we want to export. Let's say tmprod schema, and we can say exclude equals to table in table 91, 92 till table 100. So like this we can mention. So here what happens is, Oracle will take export of entire schema, but at the same time, as you mentioned, you want to skip those 10 tables, it will not take those 10 tables, which means automatically it will take the rest of the 90 tables. So this will ease the job of taking the export. So this is basically what export will do. Similarly, we have include option. So suppose you are taking export of one schema, and along with that you want to take export of one per table in some other schema. Then you can just mention something like this. So you are taking export of tmprod schema. At the same time, you want to take export of one table in other schema. So let's say scott.emp. Then you can declare like this. So what happens, along with all the tables in tmprod, it will also take the export of this particular table. So this, because or otherwise we cannot use taking the export of a schema and taking the export of the table at the same time. That is not possible. So with this include option, that has been eased. Okay, so with compression, the dump file export has been completed. So let us go and see the size now. So now you can see the difference. Earlier, without compression, the dump file size is 314 MB, and with compression, now you can see it is just 35 MB, which means 10 times it was compressed almost. So it also again depends on the data. So don't assume that every time it will come with 10 times compression or 20 times it will be reduced. So what data you have inside the database is also important. Suppose if you have character data or numeric data, then yes, export will have, compression will have lot of advantage. But if you are having LOB data, so you are storing images, video files, etc., etc. So obviously compressing those files will not give that much difference in the compression ratio. And that too, when I use it, the basic compression, you got this value. So if you go with high compression, it can be much more. So 12C has introduced one new option. So as I said, every time export and import happens in data pump, Oracle will create and drop the master table. So instead of every time it doing that, if you want to keep that master table as it is, then you have this option, keep master equals to yes. Then parallel, as I said, we can make use of to speed up the export. And you have the option to reuse the dump files. As I said, if you have already a dump file, I showed you, it has created an error stating that the file is already there. So if you want to reuse the existing file, then you can simply say reuse dump files equals to yes. Then schemas. So if you want to take a particular schema export, then you are going to mention this option. So earlier in export, we used it to mention it as owner equals to so and so. The name has been changed. So now instead of owner, you are going to say it as schemas. So then we have this version. So actually, I think I forgot to tell you, or I didn't remember whether I have, discussed this or not. The normal export import. I'm not talking about data pump. The traditional export import is only forward compatible. So which means you can take export in an INI database and you can import into 10G, or you can take in a 10G database and you can import into 11G, like that. But you cannot take export from a 11G database and you cannot import into 10G or 9A databases. That is with the traditional export import. But with the data pump, yes, we have an option even to import to the lower environments. So let's say this is my database where it is running with 12C version, and I want to take this data and import into 11G database. So as I said earlier, we don't have that option. Now we can say, just we can add one parameter, version equals to, let's say I want to import into 11G database. So simply I need to say version equals to 11.2.0.1. Then automatically whatever the dump file Oracle is creating, it will create incompatible with the 11G version. Then we can go ahead and we can perform the import in the 11G database. So 12C to 11G is possible, 12C to 10G is possible, but and 11G to 10G is also possible, but either 12C or 11G or 10G to 9i is not possible, which means you cannot mention version equals to 9.2.0.1 here. Why? Because data pump is not there in 9i. Data pump is introduced only in 10G. So that's the reason this is maximum possible with till 10G version only. And also one more question they might ask you in interviews. Suppose I have taken export normally, like the traditional export. Can I import that with IMPDP? So that is not possible. If you are taking export with EXP, then you need to import with IMP only. If you are taking export with EXPDP, then you need to import with IMPDP only. So the files are not compatible. So this mix and match is not possible. So that is version, and again 12C has introduced one new parameter, views as tables. So if you have any views, view is a logical representation to the query, a join query or whatever. So if you want the data to be exported, normally what happens when you take export, that DDL of that particular view will be exported, and the same view will be created if you do the import in a other database, destination database. But instead of that, instead of having it as a view, let's say you want to take the export as a table, then you can just mention this option, view as a table equals to yes. Then if there is any view, then instead of taking the DDL of view, it will be converted as a table with the same name, and then the table will be exported here. So while importing also, that will be imported as a table instead of as a view. So but it is a very rare case that we do this. So these are some of the important options what we use in EXPDP. So we have some other options in IMPDP. So we'll continue tomorrow. What are all they and how we are going to use them. So any questions before we close for today? Okay, so let's meet tomorrow at the same time and we'll continue. So thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice day.